Fantasy movies are fun, sure, but have you ever paid attention to the creatures and animals in them? They look so realistic, right? So today we're going to look into the question of why do apes and monkeys look so realistic in movies? And before we find out, subscribe to our channel so we can continue to delight you with new entertaining and informative videos. Let's get started. It's no surprise that movies use a lot of special effects to bring creative but unrealistic ideas to life. And there's no doubt that fantasy is a fan favorite genre. So let's see what types of special effects or special effects techniques exist. Next up is CGI. CGI, or computer-generated imagery, as you all might know, is a go-to method in the film industry, especially if you're looking to create an unrealistic scene. It's basically when they use computer graphics to create the unreal stuff you see in movies, TV shows, video games, or even simulations. This could be anything from 2D or 3D animations to making things look real or even creating whole new worlds. A famous example that you would probably be familiar with is The Jungle Book. Released in 2016, this is a classic example of CGI. The animals in this movie were so convincing that you'd think they were on loan from the nearest zoo. But nope, it was the magic of CGI. They used cutting-edge technology to create digital animals that interacted seamlessly with the live-action Mowgli, and it worked. You could feel that the animals were real method actors, giving their best performances alongside the human cast. Similarly, the Planet of the Apes series, we see a high use of CGI in the different movies. It was used for multiple purposes, and the main idea was to get that sense of realism. First of all, CGI allowed filmmakers to create entirely digital ape characters, providing a level of detail and realism in their fur, facial expressions, and movements. This approach allowed for consistency in the appearance of the apes across various scenes and films. Obviously, they could not use that many puppets or animatronics, or real ones. That would be a mess. And then the apes in the series, especially Caesar, needed to convey a wide range of emotions and subtle expressions, and that is again where CGI came into the scene. Quite literally. It facilitated facial animation, capturing the details of emotions such as anger, empathy, and intelligence. And it was this level of detail in facial animation that contributed to the audience's ability to empathize with the ape characters. Next, there is motion capture. Motion capture is another interesting technique that bridges the gap between real and digital worlds for animal characters. In this method, the movement of actual animals are recorded, and then these are translated into digital models. The result is a digital character that moves authentically, capturing the nitty-gritty of real animal behavior. The most relevant example here is fan favorite Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Now, for those who watched the movie, did you notice how Caesar and his friends look like they're straight out of the jungle? Well, it's not just good CGI. It's motion capture technology at work. As we just said, it means that the actors wore a special suit covered in tiny sensors, which was then translated into the monkey characters. Andy Serkins, the master of motion capture, played Caesar, and his performance added a whole new level to the overall character. That was some talent, right? Another example is the original King Kong movie in 1933. This version was a surprise to the audiences. With its stop-motion animation that made the gigantic ape appear realistic, it was a major win, considering the technology of the time. Third one is animatronics technique. Animatronics is a pretty fascinating technique that is being used widely in the film industry to bring animal characters to life. Essentially, it involves using mechanical puppets fitted with complex systems of motors and controls to mimic the movements and expressions of real animals. If you don't get what that is, let's consider an example. It's quite simple, actually. You must have seen a stuffed animal that can move and make sounds all by itself. That's a bit like what animatronics are. Basically, experts use motors and electronics to control different parts of the animatronic figure. These parts can include the head, arms, and sometimes even the eyes and mouth. Then, by using a computer or a remote control, they make the animatronic move in a way that looks natural, just like a real living thing. One notable example of animatronics in action is King Kong in 2017, where Jordan Vogt Roberts' remake brought us a Kong that was next-level realistic. And how they do it? Well, they combined motion capture with some good old-fashioned animatronics. And that team effort made Kong's expressions and movements believable. It was pretty incredible. Another example is Babe, Pig in the City. Now we're talking monkeys, and that was not the main character here. But this movie introduced us to Thelonious, a capuchin monkey among the diverse animal crew. Now, what made Thelonious and his friends stand out? It was the movie's blend of live action and animatronics. In this sequel to the lovable pig's adventures, the filmmakers once again employed the combination of animatronics and real animals. Thelonious, the capuchin monkey, became part of a quirky trio, proving that even in the urban jungle, animals can steal the show. The smooth integration of animatronics with real actors brought these characters to life, adding a bit of charm to the story. And then finally are combining techniques. Now these are all some of the most commonly used methods to create the realism in movies that have an unrealistic or fantasy-based storylines. But using these special effects is also a tricky matter. You can't just use any of the options and expect it to be a great film. But in many instances, filmmakers do not do for one method, so they opt for a combination of techniques to create the most convincing portrayal of animal characters. By blending animatronics, CGI, and other methods seamlessly, they achieve the best results. The film, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in 2005, it artfully combined practical effects, CGI, and animatronics to bring the majestic lion character Aslan to life. But we were talking about monkeys here, and let's see some of that. We bring you some of these gems, some of the classics, and some rather new ones that made the perfect choice of special effects. Next is puppetry. Puppetry is a method that relies on skilled puppeteers to control the movements and expressions of animal characters. It is basically a simpler version of animatronics. Whether through hand-operated or full-body puppets, puppetry offers a tangible way to portray animals in films. It is a relatively easy one, and you can find a lot of examples where this was employed. You might remember how George of the Jungle swung right into our hearts with its comedic take on the classic jungle hero. And who stole the show? Ape, George's gorilla buddy. And again, what made Ape so believable was the magic combination of puppetry and CGI. Puppetry added that tangible touch, making Ape's interactions feel real. And then CGI stepped in for those high-flying, wine-swinging movements that obviously no puppet could pull off. The technology wasn't just enhancing the charm, it was making us believe that a gorilla could indeed be the best buddy in the jungle. And we did believe that, right? There is also animal training. Adding to the simpler methods, sometimes the best way to capture the authenticity of an animal character is to work directly with trained animals. Filmmakers collaborate with animal trainers to achieve specific behaviors on set. A very famous one is Every Which Way But Loose. Another blast from the past, Clint Eastwood's sidekick, Clyde, wasn't just any monkey. He was an orangutan with some serious attitude. And what made Clyde's antics so convincing? Spoiler alert, it wasn't just movie magic. It was the result of trainers working closely with the actors to make Clyde's mischievous moves feel as natural as possible. Clyde's charismatic and memorable performance in this comedy showed us the possibility of achieving a good bond between human and animal actors, creating a dynamic duo that had us all cheering for Clyde. This was a classic example of the simple move, to hire and train a real monkey and get that realism. Simple, yet efficient. There was also Dunstan Checks In. The family comedy featured a mischievous orangutan who is causing chaos in a posh hotel. Overall, the movie was fun to watch, but one of the things was that Dunstan, the orangutan, took the spotlight. But what made Dunstan so convincing? The answer is practical effects. The filmmakers used a combination of animatronics and trained orangutans to bring this cheeky character to life. It really shows the creativity and ingenuity of movie making in the 90s. It was obviously how the character was shaped, and the comedic effect was seen in both the story and Dunstan as well. Another interesting one, aerial rigging. Aerial rigging is a technique used when animal characters require airborne movements. By suspending the characters in mid-air, filmmakers can simulate flight or other actions. The main goal here is to make it look real while also keeping everyone safe. First, the filmmakers plan and figure out exactly what actions the animal characters should do. After that, a group of experts set up special equipment like strong ropes and harnesses, making sure everything fits just right for the animal's size and weight. This way, when you see the animal doing something amazing on screen, it's all thanks to the careful planning and setup of aerial rigging. A good example again is the film George of the Jungle, where the lovable and clumsy ape named Ape is seen engaged in various aerial antics with the help of rigging techniques. First is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Let's swing back to the Planet of the Apes series, more specifically Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. In this film, the filmmakers took it up a notch by using a mix of CGI and real chimpanzees. They studied the chimpanzees' behavior and integrated those details into the digital monkeys. Isn't that the height of dedication? It obviously does add a certain depth to the overall character, the tiny details, and you all must have seen the result. A truly mind-blowing combination of realism and fantasy. Next up is Mighty Joe Young, directed by Ron Underwood. This film brought us Joe, a giant ape who stole the hearts of the audience. And what was the secret behind Joe's realism? Well, a mix of animatronics, puppetry, and CGI. The filmmakers didn't settle for one trick. They used a combination of techniques to ensure that Joe's emotions and expressions were as authentic as possible. Whether it was a gentle touch in a heartfelt scene or a powerful roar during the action, Joe's presence was as real as it could be. Then there is The Wizard of Oz. That's right, we can't go through this list without this one. While it might not be the latest flick, those flying monkeys left their mark on the audience. Back in 1939, the special effects used to create these minions were nothing short of groundbreaking. So filmmakers of that era had to get creative, using a combination of actors in costumes, stop-motion animation, and miniature models to craft the illusion of the Wicked Witch's aerial army. Next was Outbreak. In this thriller, a deadly virus outbreak was linked to a pet monkey named Betsy. But here's the challenge. Betsy needed to look realistic while conveying the gravity of the situation. And how did they achieve that? A combination of trained capuchin monkeys and animatronics. That seemed to be a common mix. By using real, trained monkeys alongside animatronics, the filmmakers brought Betsy to life in a way that not only looked convincing, but also carried the emotional weight of the narrative. With a movie that serious, they were able to convey the story perfectly, and even the parts with Betsy. Then there is Doolittle. Now moving on to a more recent one, let's not forget Doolittle with Robert Downey Jr. It took the classic story of a doctor who can talk to animals and brought it to the 21st century. Now obviously this was a recent one and the technology had developed by a great proportion. And you can see that in the movie as well. The movie featured a range of talking animals, including a witty gorilla, voiced by Rami Malek. Through a mix of CGI and voice acting, the filmmakers transformed the gorilla into a charismatic and entertaining character that left a lasting impression. And that is what it is all about. MVP, Most Valuable Primate. And then, at last, there was MVP Most Valuable Primate. This sports comedy had Jack, a chimpanzee, who's great at ice hockey. Now the filmmakers used trained chimpanzees and some clever editing to make it look like he was scoring goals and becoming a sports sensation. We see scenes where Jack is eating or playing ice hockey, or other things you might see being done by humans. It is a fun example of how animals can take on unexpected roles and steal the spotlight in cool ways, just through a little editing and training. So, those were just some of the most common and effective ways that have been used in filmmaking throughout the years. Be it motion capture or CGI or animatronics, technology has been a great help in achieving that level of realism. But the good old-fashioned ways of animal training, puppeteering, have also been a good and equally effective support to achieve that in a simpler way. And there you have it, guys. Movie monkeys are more than just pixels on a screen. They're a combination of technology, talented actors, and a bit of movie magic. Which movie was your favorite? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, you're watching a film with such characters. Remember the work that goes into making them look this realistic. Until next time.